Hello and welcome to the Path to Transplant's Donor Seeker program. My name is Risa Simon and I'm the founder of the TransplantFirst Academy. Yet today I stand before you as a fellow kidney patient. A fellow kidney patient who received a preemptive kidney transplant from a big-hearted living kidney donor. I'm going to be your tour guide throughout this program, so pull up a chair and let's start the conversation. The conversation about how you can attract potential living kidney donors and secure your best life possible. The objective of this program is to increase your odds. Increase your odds for securing a transplant before you require dialysis. For those of you that are already on dialysis, your goal is to end your wait for a transplant and your continued need for dialysis. And the only way we can increase our odds in either one of those areas is by receiving offers from potential living kidney donors. Now, why are we talking about living kidney donation and living donors? Well, as many of you know, there are over 100,000 people waiting on a list in the United States for a kidney transplant, waiting for a kidney from a deceased organ donor. And that wait can take about 5 years, and in some areas as much as 9+. And you would think, though, waiting on this list, at some point your name would make it to the top. But let's take a closer look. Every year, only 18%, that's right, 18,000 people receive transplants while waiting on that list. And again, you might say, well, 18,000 people are getting transplants. Eventually your name will get to the top of the list, but not so fast, because there are an additional 35,000 names that are added to the list every year. That's like one new name every 15 minutes. And so clearly we are in an impossible catch-22. Our supply cannot meet its demand. And we also have 3 strikes against us from the get-go. And those 3 strikes are, first strike being, there's little, if any, incentive for CKD patients, chronic kidney disease patients, to proactively engage in learning more about transplant, learning more about how they can bypass dialysis, learning more about preemptive transplant. In fact, over 75% of CKD patients are inadequately educated about transplant. Also, transplant is not really being positioned as the best outcome, as your best choice. You're given a choice. You get an opportunity to learn about the 2 options, dialysis or transplant, but it's presented more as a preference. What's your preference? And clearly, this is more than a Coke or Pepsi type of thing. If you knew then what you are learning now, what you know now, what you continue to learn, surely you would be doing some things a little differently. I surely would. I would have put on my proactive self-advocate hat years before I reached a point in my renal function where I had to pay a little bit more attention to this. If someone told me back then that if I was eligible for transplant, that I could actually gain maybe another 10 to 15 years of a better quality of life, and that you might want to keep your eye on that goal and keep yourself healthy and learn about the process of transplant and the wait, and understand how you can engage as a self-advocate and find potential living kidney donors, wow, that would be amazing. And quite frankly, that's what needs to happen. But that's what this course is all about. We're going to bridge that gap. The second strike against us is there's poor planning. This sort of goes into that same bucket, but we show up to the transplant center. We don't understand our role. We show up to the transplant center without a plan. If you're lucky enough to get referred and you're lucky enough to pass the evaluation and become a transplant candidate, then what? Well, it's that hurry up and wait again if you don't have at least one potential donor that is willing to step forward to begin testing for you. This finding living kidney donors thing, it takes time. This is not a ruby slipper type of thing where we just click our heels together and all of a sudden a living kidney donor appears. Oh, my friends, I wish it was, but it is something that takes an incredible amount of time and your full attention. The third strike is there's no owner's manual, there's no user's manual, at least that was until now. We'll tell you a little bit more about our companion book to this class. But there was no guide that really helped us understand why we should be looking at transplant, how we could be looking at transplant, how to go about this process of being our own best advocate, how to share our story, and how to potentially attract individuals to lean in our direction. We can't afford to wait till 20 GFR to begin this process. Typically, a lot of nephrologists wait till 20% function. That's 20 GFR. You probably have seen that on your labs, the numbers. You're following that closely, I'm sure. But if you start at 20 to be an advocate, surely you may not get the transplant or possibly even the evaluation before you hit 20. But it should be very close to that number, and you can be doing so much before you reach that degree of function. So we engage in advance, and I'm going to turn back the clock as to how I became an empowered patient. I'm going to turn back my own personal movie and give you a snapshot of 30 years of my life, of where I started and how I ignited a more proactive advocate within. It all began back in 1978 when I was diagnosed with the same disease that took my father's life in his early 40s. That was polycystic kidney disease, also known as PKD. And yeah, it took my father's life in his early 40s, took my grandmother's life before I was born, and put my brother on dialysis in his 30s. When I got that diagnosis, I felt like I was completely in the dark. All I had was a history of family struggles, and there wasn't really any incentive for me to learn more and do more, how to secure the best outcome when I did get to a point where my kidneys could no longer function adequately on their own. Instead, I just sort of buried my head in the sand, and I was hopeful that this disease would never impact me as it had other family members. And I see now that was not smart thinking. And while dialysis and transplant were presented to me, they were presented as an option. I knew no better, and I wasn't really guided. I didn't have the content that I needed to make an informed decision. So I was basically sleepwalking my way to dialysis, and then I received an email one day from the Polycystic Kidney Disease Foundation, and they were informing me that there was a patient conference coming up in the summer of 2008, and I jumped on a plane and I said, I've got to attend that conference. So what I needed to do in my life right now isn't going to happen in the exam room. It was clear at that point. So I bought myself a ticket, I jumped on a plane, and I attended this patient conference, and I will tell you, my friends, that conference rocked my world. I sat on the edge of my seat listening to a transplant surgeon talk about preemptive transplantation, and I thought, preemptive, what the heck is that? And then he defined it to say this is the route of where you secure a transplant before you require dialysis. You could bypass dialysis, and while there's a wait for deceased donors, for a kidney from a deceased donor, there's this amazing workaround that you might want to consider. And that workaround was considering living kidney donation, finding a living kidney donor for my transplant, getting a transplant through the gift of a living kidney donor. And the stats were shared in terms of the number of years I might gain, and the function and the response of getting a transplant with a kidney from a living kidney donor. And I was just reeling with excitement. I couldn't wait to take all that I learned and get back on the plane and get back home and get to work. And I was surprised when I got back and I brought my enthusiastic spirit back to my nephrologist, and I said, I've got a plan. I hope you're going to join my team. I'm on a mission to secure a preemptive transplant, and I'm full steam ahead. And I surprisingly received some pushback. I was like, oh, no, you're way ahead of the 8 ball. I was about 28 GFR at the time, the summer of 2008. And it was like, no, you're too far ahead of yourself. You've got time. You don't want to start activating this yet. But I just basically wanted to learn how to go about the process of seeing if I could find a potential living kidney donor. So I was surprised by that pushback. But again, I realized, all right, I'm going to team and partner with my doctor, but I realize as an advocate, I need to do some things outside that exam room to advance me to my end game goal. And so I did a lot of research. I found individuals that had gone through this process and were further along in the path, that had received a transplant, were now living amazing lives, and I interviewed them and informally was sort of being mentored by these individuals, and it really was life-changing. It ignited a passion within to not only use the information that I was learning, but to expand on that information and to develop my own success formula, a success formula for myself and potentially for others. It was as if I was injected with a Popeye can of spinach, and I was on a path, and there was no turning back, and no one was going to change my mind to do anything otherwise. And so I'm going to share that success formula with you right now, and I want you to buckle up as we're going to take a magic carpet ride as I reveal the 9 proactive steps from my success formula that other people are using as well to help you find potential living kidney donors. Okay, so you ready? Let's push that reset button and begin. Step 1. Step 1 is to start with your end in mind and to keep your eyes on the goal line. Keep your eyes on the prize. Transplant before dialysis, or if you're already on dialysis, end your wait for a transplant and your need for continued dialysis. And you want to avoid all the detours and the circuitous routes that can distract you from your end game goal. As the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland once said, if you don't know where you're going, just about any road will take you there. So you need to have a clear path and stay the course. Know your plan and work the plan. And we're going to be building that plan as we move forward. Step 2. You need to rise up. Yeah, stand in front of your diagnosis, in front of your disease. You are not your disease. You are not your diagnosis. So you rise up and you become your own best advocate. That's right. And it's going to take a little bit of courage to do that. So you want to push yourself in little ways to become more courageous every day. I didn't think I could do it. And believe me, if I could do it, you can do it. You're looking at a person that would weep for hours upon leaving that exam room. I would start weeping on the way out the door, through the parking lot, and into my car for quite some time. And if someone like I can become more courageous and be an inspirational message for all of you, believe me, you can do it too. And today's proof. You're attending this program, you're obviously making a statement here. You're saying, hey, I want to learn more and I want to do more. So congratulations for being a part of this program. To be more courageous, you don't have to seek out a wizard. You are your own wizard. Your courage is already inside of you. You just have to tap into it. You have to just, peel back some of those layers and tap into it. And to be more courageous does not require a lion's roar. It could be that soft inner voice telling you that you can do this and that you've got this. And even if you don't have it perfectly down pat today, you can pick it up tomorrow. You see, when you begin early on in your disease continuum to do this, this is the beauty of having the time. You not only have tomorrow, you have many tomorrows, many weeks and months, and maybe even years to be working this process of becoming more courageous and knowing your path and plotting that path and securing your best outcome. The third step is to start a journal with your intentions that documents not only your intention to secure a transplant and to live your best life, but also that documents your wins, what we call our victories. So you'll have a victory log, and I want you to track all these things that you're starting to do and give yourself a little pat on the back. Just say, hey, I did this today. Well, I think I can do it even better tomorrow or next time this opportunity presents itself. But for right now, I'm feeling pretty good about this. And like I said, even if it's not perfect, every time you practice, if it's sharing your story or talking to your doctors, it's going to be that much easier and that much better at each subsequent time that you practice some of these techniques. The fourth step is to share your story and sprinkle your story on everyone that crosses your path. You're going to educate and inform family and friends at the very least, right? And you're going to inform them as to what it is that you have and how they can help you. See, no one's going to offer to help you if they don't know what it is that you need and how they can go about helping you. So this is your responsibility to educate and inform others about your need, about the need for everyone for that matter, and how they can go about helping you share your story. And as you ask individuals to join in on understanding your need and what it is that you do need, you want to invite them to be part of your team. So you invite individuals to be part of your team. You're going to enlist individuals, not just your family and friends, and you're going to enlist and mobilize these individuals. And you can have an army of advocates join your team. You might say, well, I got friends and family, but who else? Well, your boss, co-workers, neighbors, your local community, place of worship, class reunions, the list goes on all the way to long lost pals. And so don't overlook some of your advocates that you could tap into. And some of you might say, well, I've been through that list. I exhausted that list. I've shared my story with all of those contacts that I have in my world. I'm going to ask you to look at that list a little closer. And even if you feel you've exhausted that list, we're going to teach you a more effective way to share your story. So maybe you can recharge your story and go back and reignite the list. And again, even if you said, hey, been there, done that, at the very least, you need to expand your circle of influence. So you go out and you volunteer and engage in activities you've never been involved in before, because you're going to meet new people doing that. And at the very least, you're going to feel good about paying it forward. So get out there and meet new people. These are people that might be willing to advocate on your behalf. And as they learn more, they might even contemplate doing more. I love the power of we. When we take a look at the opportunity to replace the word I with the word we, even the word illness can become wellness. Wow, the collective voices give our story wings. It will give your story wings by developing a team. And this is truly the power of we. There is no I in the word team. Step 6, you want to be able to disseminate information that will allow people to not only learn more, but re-engage with you. You want to invite them to contact you or your transplant center. So one great way to do this is to have a story outreach card. Now you can see the front of the card is very much like a business card, but it's your personal story outreach card. Has your picture, has information, your contact information about you, and also contact information as to how somebody could contact your transplant center, particularly the call-in desk for potential living kidney donors, interested folks that want to learn more. And on the back of the card, it's just a quick snapshot of you're in urgent need for a kidney transplant. There's 100,000 people waiting on the list. You're hoping to bypass dialysis while waiting, and if they would like to learn a little bit more about how they could help you share your story or engage more as a potential living kidney donor, to please contact you or your transplant center on the front of the card. Believe it or not, you can get that succinctly in on the back of a card, and we have that example in the book. Story outreach letters. We certainly don't want you to have to reinvent the wheel, so we have those templates, but let me peel back some of the layers on what should be in your story, whether it be delivered through a letter that is mailed, snail mailed or emailed, or a letter that may be handed to someone across the table. But it's your story, so it could also be live and in person. So let's look at some of the elements that should be in there. First, we'll start with talking points. The first talking point you want to include is your rapid decline and urgent need. I mean, it's important. Okay, that's okay. We've got sort of setting the groundwork here for here's the situation. This is what I need, and why you hope to bypass dialysis. You'll need to share some of those underbelly facts about why dialysis is not something that's going to support you long term. And the wait for a kidney from a deceased donor. How many people are waiting? How long the wait is? Most people have no clue. They think, oh, she needs a kidney transplant, she'll get one. No, that's not how it works, and many of you are learning that. How living kidney donors can help you end your wait, and as an added bonus, the transplant recipient can receive more years of function. They respond better during transplant, and they typically last longer. So these are some great facts that you need to share in your talking points. And then there are story elements, personal elements like your blood type, but please don't discourage anyone from becoming a potential donor because they have learned that they're an incompatible blood type. Perhaps you can share information about the paired exchange programs and opportunities that would still allow you to receive a better match when somebody enters that program. Maybe it won't be a direct donation to you, but it's an opportunity where they can give to someone else in need, and you can receive a kidney from someone else's incompatible donor. And the great thing about paired exchange is that one individual can donate one of their kidneys and help many people, because they may be the one that's causing this domino effect, and it's just a wonderful opportunity. Donors don't have to be blood related. A lot of people don't know that. Not even a distant cousin, you say? Right, not even a distant cousin. Good thing for potential donors to know is that your insurance company is going to cover their testing and the surgery. But it's also important to discuss that your insurance company is not going to cover travel expenses or lost wages. And so that's a conversation you need to have with them, so that there are no surprises, especially surprises as you're getting closer after somebody's already gone forward to contact the transplant center, and everybody's very hopeful. So let's get some of that information up front if you can. And the location of your transplant center. Maybe someone is long distance and they want to know where is that transplant center, and perhaps maybe there's something they can start long distance to help get the ball rolling. Linking to frequently asked questions. Ideally, links to your transplant center's website would be best, because every transplant center does, they work about transplant. Their process for transplant can vary. And so the best thing for you to do is give potential donors information directly from your transplant center, so there's no misinformation disseminated. And last but not least, you want to include items that might be in your personal, what we call a bucket list. What do you want to do on this planet before you leave this planet? And what would you do? Let's reframe it. What would you do if you received this gift? How would you be living the rest of your years if you receive this gift from a living kidney donor? If you're a grandmother or a grandfather and you want to spend more time watching your grandchildren grow up, talk about that. If you're a patient that wants to not only live a better life, but you want to help other people live a better life, and you want to advocate on behalf of those in need, you would like to come back and become an individual that can help mentor and inspire individuals like you, then talk about that, because that's inspiring. And when you throw your heart into your story, you can inspire other people by connecting to their heartstrings. Step 7, you need to script out your story and practice it. That's right, you want to role play it. Try friends and family for starters. That might be the best. Your closest friends and family members to sit down after you've scripted your story and role play it. And I'm not asking you to memorize your story, because that won't come off very well. I just want you to script it out so you know how you want to succinctly share your story, and you want to share it in such a way that people understand it and that they engage, that there's like an open invitation to engage, at the very least, to help you share your story. And keep in mind that when you're sharing your story in social media and perhaps sending out email blasts and letters, or having content on your own personal website, you want to create opportunities where you can be in front of people as well. And let me explain why. The written word counts for about 10% of someone's communication. And I think you know this from experience. You may have at some point, if not many times, received a text or an email and you thought, oh, that person was sort of abrupt, or that was somewhat demanding, or that person's upset with me, or that wasn't very friendly or very kind, because you didn't hear their tone of voice, or because you didn't see their body language. So if our words only get 10% impact in communication, then you have an opportunity to expand your impact by being in front of someone, knee to knee, eye to eye. As you can see, tone of voice adds 30% to that impact of words only, so we're up to 40%. But if you add eye contact, facial expressions, and body language, now you're talking. It's an extra 60%, so you're back to 100%, what you should be securing, 100% impact from your storytelling, from your story sharing. So role play this. And I know it's kind of hard and maybe a little awkward to feel like, how can I do this? And how is this conversation supposed to come off? But if you role play and practice, you will soon find out that you'll be refining your story, and it won't be a memorized, pull the string and tell your story. It will be more of a natural flow. We have an excellent role play video that we invite you to watch, and you can can find it on our website on a dedicated page, findingkidneydonors.com. So if you want to scribble that down, findingkidneydonors.com, go to about the middle of the page and you'll see a couple video links where you can click on and watch a role play of two friends talking to each other, one in need and one who's interested in knowing what's up with her friend and how she can help. So it's a great way to get started on role play. The 8th step is to delegate and track. Now, you might think, well, I'm going to get my team together and everybody's going to help me share my story. Well, you've got your contact list, you've got your circle of influence, they have their contact list. So make sure you have a plan of who's going to contact who. Maybe you take 20% of your list and delegate the process of contacting 20% of your list to one individual and another 20% to another individual. The last thing you want is for you to be contacting people and other people to be contacting those same people, or several people on your team contacting the same person. That is way too overwhelming. So let's be clear on who's contacting who, and let's document who contacted who and how they contacted them. Was it an e-blast? Was it a social media post that someone responded to? Was it a verbal exchange? Was it a meetup? And what occurred during that exchange? Was there a positive response, or was there some interest, or was there a request to learn more? How should you follow up? So let's track that. Let's make sure we're following up with the people we should be following up with. And if you haven't contacted people in a while, what a great way to reignite the sharing of your story and going back with some additional information and giving them an update. Great idea, but please make sure you're delegating and tracking so you're not overworking your plan or pushing anybody away by contacting them more than you need to. And the 9th and final step is to mentor up. That's right, we're going to ignite our donor magnet superpowers. As a donor seeker, you can ignite your donor magnet superpowers by mentoring up, by following steps 1 through 8 and mentoring up. And what you're doing is seeking wisdom from people that have already received a transplant. That's what I did. I followed these 9 steps, and the 9th one being I mentored up so I could log in and I had resources that I could use at any time when I got up against a hurdle and I was trying to figure out, okay, do I turn right, turn left, or just jump over? So it took, over the course of 18 months, it took about over a year and a half for me to work this process. Now, had I learned, or I should say, had I known what I now know, it probably would have been half of that time frame, because I was learning along through the process. Nonetheless, I had 24 people lean forward in my direction, and of those 24, 5 called my transplant center, and 4 fully tested. All 4 were unfortunately disqualified for various reasons, and the 5th one actually no-showed to testing. And yes, that can happen. Oh my goodness, good grief, Charlie Brown. It happens. People no-show, people disappear. You might be thinking, oh my gosh, I thought for sure my best friend would step forward, or someone who's close to you that you thought for sure that they would step forward. Don't take this personally. There are individuals that will be triggered immediately to lean in, and there are others that want to process it and process this in a different way. And it is a process, but know that this process can, and I want to be very upfront with you, it can be a painstaking process, and there are a lot of false starts and broken dreams. It's normal. Know that. Don't throw in the towel, say, oh, you see, it worked for Risa and it's worked for others, but it's not going to work for me. That's not true. This is a normal look what happened to me. And my saving grace, and I hope your saving grace will be when you head up against some of these disappointments, my saving grace was that I never stopped believing that my ideal donor was out there. I just knew in my heart that my ideal donor was going to appear. And I looked back on those disappointments and I said to myself, wow, those were blessings in disguise. Those individuals weren't supposed to be my donor. Maybe they would have put in harm's way. And it's one great thing that the Transplant Center does. They make sure that no one is put in harm's way, and that's why the testing is so rigorous. But maybe I would have been put in harm's way. You just never know. So you want somebody that's all in, and it is a process. But I knew, I kept believing my ideal donor was out there, and I just knew something bigger was in the works. I just felt in my heart of hearts something bigger was in the works. works. And I knew if I could believe it, I was at least halfway there. And I went back to my intention statement, I went back to my journal, and I rewrote my intention statement. But this time, I rewrote it as if what I was hoping had already happened. That's right, I rewrote it as if I already found my ideal donor. This person was approved, and our surgeries were scheduled and completed, and they were successful, and we were both living glorious lives. And I kept that visualization in my mind's eye, and within 10 days, my ideal donor appeared. Meet Melissa Blevins Bean, my ideal living kidney donor. We met as newbie friends. When we met, we felt a kindred spirit, and we had no idea that the HLA lab would tell us that we'd have a sibling-like match. And on June 8th, 2010, that's what I call Adoption Day, I adopted Mac. Meet Mac. MAC is an acronym for Melissa's Amazing Kidney, and oh my gosh, amazing she has been. And life has been just extraordinary for both myself and Melissa. This experience has been so enriching and has allowed us both to set the example for, if I can do it, you can too. If a living kidney donor can do it, then other potential living kidney donors can too. And as a recipient, a hopeful recipient can do it, then other hopeful recipients can achieve this as well. But I also remind you, when we kind of roll back the success story here, that living kidney donation is not for everyone. Please keep that in mind. It's more than a desire to help. And so, as I mentioned, do not be personally offended or feel that someone doesn't love you or loves you less because they didn't step forward, they didn't lean forward and say, how can I help? How could I be a donor? It's not for everyone. And when I interview living kidney donors, they tell me that it was more than a desire to help. Sure, the desire is there. And all those that will be sharing your story will have a desire to help. But it's a step beyond. It's a step deeper. It's a much deeper dive than a desire to help. What I'm told by living kidney donors is that it's something inside them triggers. It is almost as if it was a calling. Some individuals say they just can't wrap words around it. But it's a special trigger or a triggering event that occurs that allows someone to lean forward and consider testing on your behalf. And some of you might be saying, well, gosh, I don't think I'll ever be lucky enough to find anyone that would do this for me. I surely felt that. I thought, no one's going to step forward for me. And how could I even consider asking someone to step forward? It's such a big ask and such a big responsibility. And then I reframed all my insecurities. I reframed my thoughts of this is selfish and this is not something that I should be doing, and realized that I needed to, at the very least, share my story to help all those in need. And at the very best, to inspire individuals to help not just myself, I should say, but all those individuals in need, and to make a difference, to use my voice. And after interviewing living kidney donors that tell me they'd be devastated if they had offered to donate and the individual in need refused the offer. And I've heard of this, and you may have felt this from time to time, like, oh, I couldn't let my child do this for me, or my parent, or my best friend. I want you to reframe that this is not our decision. This is a decision made by a potential living kidney donor. If they decide they want to step up to the plate and get tested to see if they can be your donor, this is not your decision to tell them yes or no. This is an incredible gift. It's an extraordinary gift. It usually allows ordinary people to achieve extraordinary humanitarian events in their life, and you can't rob them from that blessing, quote unquote. From one living kidney donor, she would have been robbed from the blessing of giving. So keep that in mind. But it isn't about luck. Know that it goes beyond that. I personally know, as Elmer Letterman once said, that luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. This is not about me being luckier than you or others being luckier than me. This is about us being prepared. And our biggest threat is inertia. Our biggest threat is sleepwalking our way to dialysis, not doing anything until we get sick enough to do something, and that's really when you feel like you got a lot of energy to work this plan, right? Of course not. So we need to have the plan, work the plan, and be all in. That's what this is all about. You've got to give it your all. You're going to roll up your sleeves, throw your heart into the game. And while I don't know your story, and I can't guarantee your outcome, I know that if you follow these 9 proactive steps and embrace these steps as part of your game plan, an unwavering game plan to secure a transplant from a living kidney donor, to end your wait or end your need for continuing on dialysis. Dialysis will not stand a chance if you engage in this process, if you take your notes from today's program, if you take the learning from today's program and the infographic handout of these 9 steps. And let's take a closer look at that companion book for this course, that the title being In Pursuit of a Better Life, The Ultimate Guide for Finding Living Kidney Donors, available on Amazon and off of the website as well. I mean, you have a lot of opportunities to get additional encouragement, additional motivation, and more guidance, along with templates of the letters and scripts and tips, and just a bundle of information and additional resources. You know, you have the power, after viewing this program, you have the power to make a choice. And that choice is to do something to impact your future. You have the power that previous generations could barely dream of. And I invite you to tap into that power. To tap into that power and know that while we can't turn the clock back, we can't do away with our diagnosis. I can't turn the clock back to help my father have a different outcome, or my brother or my grandmother, but I know that I can impact today. You can impact today. You can impact the now, right now. You can turn the page and begin the beginning of the rest of your life by engaging, by saying, I'm all in. I'm going to be looking for you at the top of that mountain where you feel like, okay, I've gained some of my power back. That's how I'm living my best life ever. And this is what I hope for you. You've got this.